We recently went to RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire to see the prototype of the General Atomics SkyGuardian remotely piloted aircraft system, that's RPAS, and where we also talked to Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wigston, Chief of the Air Staff. That interview with the head of the Royal Air Force is coming up later in the show.
So this is an aircraft that we can operate on large parts of the world. That gives us enormous choice and gives our decision makers choice as to how the UK will operate and act on a world stage.
The aircraft was in the UK to support the development of the revolutionary detect and avoid technology, which the manufacturer hopes will allow Protector to fly in all UK airspace and not just in segregated airspace. Operating the aircraft in the UK was also intended to give the RAF, the type's first customer, an opportunity to work out exactly what will be needed in order to fully integrate Protector operations at Waddington, alongside that base's fixed-wing ISR aircraft, and also at Lossiemouth. It was also an opportunity for VIPs and programme sponsors to see the Protector at close quarters. These VIPs included CAS, Sir Mike Wigston, the Minister, Ben Wallace, and also Air Vice Marshal Link Taylor, the RAF's head of future capability. The aircraft also undertook a series of capability demonstrations to partners and allies. I'm John Lake.
And I'm Angie B. Hello and welcome to A2&i.
The Protector requirement originally emerged out of the UK's long-running Scavenger programme. Scavenger captured the UK's requirement for a medium-altitude, long-endurance, that's MALE, UAS, to replace the Reaper. Scavenger called for a deep and persistent armed ISR capability, and it was originally planned to enter service in 2018. Analysis at the time indicated that a medium-altitude, long-endurance RPAS-class system would be the most cost-effective solution to the requirement. The MOD says that it considered acquisition options from around the globe before, perhaps predictably, settling on an American solution. And that solution was a variant of what we originally knew as the certifiable Predator B, which was later renamed as the MQ-9B SkyGuardian, and which the RAF will call the Protector RG.Mk.
The Protector has a long and fascinating lineage, going back to the leading systems in amber, designed by Abraham Karam in the early 1980s. LSI developed the Gnat 750 UAV as an improved derivative of the amber, and this version was used operationally by the CIA, flying reconnaissance missions in the Balkans in the mid-1990s, and it was designated as the Tier 1. LSI was bought out by General Atomics in 1991, who then developed the Gnat 750 into an operational UAV, the MQ-1 Predator. Further development led to the MQ-1C SkyWarrior, later known as the Grey Eagle, and the SkyWarrior Alpha, as well as the bigger wing turbine engine MQ-9 Predator B, or Reaper. The Predator B spawned the Maritime Predator B, with increased endurance and a belly-mounted radar, and the new MQ-9 Block 5, which introduced increased electrical power, secure communications, automatic landing, and an increased gross takeoff weight. The certifiable Predator B was developed by General Atomics to meet international demand for a male RPAS capable of being certified for operation within civilian airspace. The 2015 Strategic Defence and Security Review announced that the Royal Air Force planned to operate at least 20 certified Predator B aircraft by 2025, replacing the RAF's current fleet of 10 MQ-9A Reapers. The review confirmed that the new aircraft would be known as the Protector.
The SkyGuardian's deployment to Waddington was not the first time that this aircraft type has been seen in the UK. a General Atomics owned MQ-9B SkyGuardian, actually the same aircraft as we see at Waddington, the first prototype, was flown from the USA to RAF Fairford on the 15th of July 2018. This incidentally marked the first transatlantic flight by a male UAV. The aircraft was then displayed at the Royal International Air Tattoo, a big UK air show, where it wore the markings of No. 31 Squadron, which is due to be the first RAF squadron to operate the Protector RG.Mk. 2 years later, on the 15th of July 2020, the UK MOD signed a £65 million contract for 3 Protector aircraft with 3 ground stations and support equipment, taking an option on an additional 13 aircraft. The contract announcement claimed that Protector was needed in order to equip UK intelligence agencies and the British Armed Forces with the capabilities they need to keep the streets of Britain safe. A £195 million order for the 13 additional aircraft, with 4 more ground control stations and more support equipment, was placed in July 2021, after a commitment to a 16-strong Protector fleet was outlined in the Defence Command Paper. In the meantime, the UK's first Protector RG.Mk RPAS, known as UK-1, successfully completed its first flight in the US on Friday the 25th of September 2020. This was actually the 4th SkyGuardian built and the 2nd production standard aircraft. Compared to the Reaper, the Protector RG-1 promises to bring enhanced armed intelligence, surveillance, targeting and reconnaissance ISTAR capability, including extended range, increased payload and the integration of UK weapons. It will therefore carry next generation low collateral damage precision strike weapons, including the UK-made MBDA Brimstone missile and also the Raytheon UK Paveway 4 laser-guided bomb. The aircraft has 7 external weapons stations, meaning that it could theoretically carry a total of 21 Brimstone missiles. This all represents a really significant improvement over Reaper. But the biggest improvement will be the freedom to operate in civilian airspace and not to be restricted to segregated airspace and war zones. This is what allowed the recent flying from Waddington, where we had the opportunity for a much closer look at the aircraft. Interestingly, planned flights of the SkyGuardian over San Diego didn't go ahead last year. This was reportedly after safety objections were raised by the US Federal Aviation Authority, the FAA, the US airspace regulator. The US flights instead took place well away from any populated areas, over the desert between Palmdale, California and Yuma, Arizona. Now, apart from the deficit of decent cacti, Lincolnshire is of course the direct UK equivalent of the Arizona desert. We're here at RAF Waddington. Behind me is the new General Atomics Protector UAV, the most exciting procurement we've seen for the RAF in quite a time. Represents an expansion of capability. We're going to be talking about that to the Secretary of State and hopefully to the Chief of the Air Staff. Well, it turns out that I was wrong, and that while talking to Cass was both easy and an absolute joy, the Secretary of State for Defence decided that he would only talk to the BBC, ITV and Sky, and eventually, apparently reluctantly, also to the BFBS. He avoided the specialists and the print journalists, and he ignored us too. Now, I don't expect much for myself as a minor 2-bit aerospace journalist, but I do feel that you, our readers and our viewers, do deserve a bit of common courtesy. Listening what Wallace had to say, however, I don't think we missed all that much.
But it's a really exciting capability.
Before our interview with the Chief, let's take a closer look at the deployment.
The aircraft initially operated from RAF Waddington in Lincolnshire, home of the Royal Air Force's ISR I-Star Force, though it was controlled from RAF Lossiemouth in Scotland. This demonstrated a key Protector capability, which is that the aircraft is capable of being flown anywhere in the world while being operated by personnel located at its home base, with no need for a ground control station at its deployed takeoff and landing point. This was not possible with Reaper, where latency meant that the aircraft could not safely be landed without an on-scene control station. On Reaper, the ground control station at Waddington does not control the takeoffs and landings, which have to be undertaken locally in Afghanistan. This necessitates the deployment of some of the more experienced pilots to the launch and recovery ground stations at Kandahar. The 1 second time lag on the sensor feed from Afghanistan is sufficient to affect piloting in the most safety critical phase of flight, the landing, especially in crosswinds.
Protector has already demonstrated its automatic takeoff and landing capability and also its ability to take off and land using SATCOM. The level of automation in the aircraft, Protector's ability to fly itself, to take off and land itself, to ferry itself from one base to the next without humans operating it or actually doing the flying, is thus really significant. This is a very real advantage for Protector. An even bigger advantage is the aircraft's ability to fly pretty well anywhere. The SkyGuardian is already operating in normal controlled airspace, and the development programme will eventually allow it to fly even in entirely non-segregated airspace. Equipment and regulations to allow this are currently being developed with the FAA, CAA and with NASA's participation, including a new collision avoidance system that's based on the use of a detect and avoid radar. But fundamentally, this is possible because SkyGuardian will be the world's first certified male RPAS. The aircraft was designed from the very start to meet or exceed all existing aviation certification standards. We chatted about this with the then Air Commodore Ian Windy Gale at Fairford in 2018, when he was senior responsible owner for all of the RAF's ISR aircraft. He explained that the Protector is even being built in a different way to previous unmanned systems. He characterised Reaper production, for example, as being like how a Morgan sports car was built in days of old, describing it as being quite bespoke and more like craft production than aircraft production. Whereas he said that the Protector production line is like any other aircraft factory. It's a certified production line with lots of repeatable processes, fasteners everywhere, and everything at least dual redundant. Specific design changes include extensive lightning protection and also the use of different composite materials which make for a more damage-tolerant airframe. Building the aircraft to these standards, coupled with a foolproof collision avoidance system, a so-called detect and avoid system, promises to meet the stringent airworthiness type certification requirements of the various military and civil authorities, including the UK Military Airworthiness Authority, the MAA, and also the US FAA. This will then allow unrestricted operations in all classes of civil airspace. Ian Gale is a real enthusiast for the detect and avoid technology being developed for Protector. He says that detect and avoid will reveal the limitations of the human in a way that we never have before, and that this technology will soon transfer into manned aircraft. This is, he avers, because everyone will realise that we've cracked a problem that's been out there since the start of aviation. At the moment, anyone with a PPL can rent a Cessna and they might not be at their best. They might not have flown for a while. They might not be very good. They can be distracted and they might not be keeping an adequate lookout. But nobody is checking that they're looking around. whereas Protector's detect and avoid system means that it is going to be looking around and it won't get tired, it won't get bored, it will never get distracted, and it will see that flock of seagulls, that glider that isn't transmitting, somebody's old tiger moth, that airliner over there. It's doing all of that all the time. Despite all the design changes, Protector still looks very much like a Reaper, though it has a slightly longer 79-foot wingspan that incorporates winglets to reduce drag. A2&i understands that the Protector will actually have a slightly different wingtip design to the standard SkyGuardian, since the wingtips will incorporate some new UK-specific antennas. The aircraft can carry enough fuel for a 40-hour endurance at 50,000 feet, and it can reach heights of 40,000 feet even with a payload of up to 4,800 pounds. The new variant also comes with enhanced data links and, as we've said, it enjoys a 50% payload increase over the Reaper. The aircraft deployed to Waddington was the first pre-production example of the new Protector, and it was being operated by the manufacturer, General Atomics Aeronautical Systems Incorporated. The aircraft also made a brief 2-day visit to the Royal Netherlands Air Force Base at Leeuwarden, arriving at the Dutch base on the 2nd of September. The flight to Leeuwarden was conducted as operational air traffic under the control of UK military air traffic controllers at Swanwick, up to the boundary between the UK's and the Netherlands controlled airspace. At an agreed crossing point, Dutch military air traffic controllers then took full responsibility for the flight. The aircraft moved to RAF Lossiemouth in northeast Scotland on the 12th of September, shepherded there by an RAF Boeing P-8A Poseidon. This move was made to allow it to participate in exercise Joint Warrior. It stayed at Lossiemouth until mid to late October. The UK Civil Aviation Authority granted temporary permission for these flights using temporary danger areas promulgated by NOTAM, that's Notices to Airmen. The SkyGuardian operated in airspace where it received a service from air traffic controllers, with the temporary airspace changes ensuring that other aircraft were excluded from the area unless they and SkyGuardian could sense and avoid each other. These initial flights in controlled airspace used standard aircraft coordination technology to maintain safe separation, but the type will later use its own detect and avoid radar to allow operation in unsegregated airspace. Now, this ability will allow the aircraft to better deliver an array of military missions and especially to deliver support to civil authorities, including search and rescue and disaster relief. Mike Wigston said that roles could include pollution monitoring, assisting in a climate emergency or a humanitarian disaster, as well as doing what he called some of the more difficult counter-terrorism missions in what he calls some fairly nasty parts of the world. Meanwhile, flight testing of the first production aircraft for the UK is already underway in the USA, and following support system testing by a combined UK Ministry of Defence, US Air Force and General Atomics test team, UK-1 will be delivered to the UK MOD in the summer of 2021. It will remain in the USA to complete the Royal Air Force's test and evaluation programme, including certification evidence trials that will be undertaken in 2022 and 2023. The first RAF crews will be trained in the US in 2022. The Protector RG.Mk will achieve initial operational capability, IOC, in 2024, with one 24/7 operational task line and one UK-based training line. Full operational capability, FOC, will follow in 2026, with the ability to sustain three 24/7 operational task lines and also the UK-based training line. Protector will replace the Reaper drones that have seen such extensive operational use by the RAF in Afghanistan, in the Middle East and most recently over Syria and Iraq. The planned RAF Protector force will consist of 2 operational squadrons, and Waddington will also host an international training facility on a brand new campus. This will enable crews from the RAF and future international partners to conduct a significant amount of their training in a secure synthetic environment. This will be linked with the Defence Collective Training Environment under the UK Gladiator programme. The force will consist of 16 air vehicles, 7 ground control stations, 5 synthetic training systems, as well as some 501 personnel, aircrew, engineers, analysts and support trades. During its UK deployment, the aircraft was operated in SkyGuardian configuration, carrying a belly-mounted 360-degree maritime search radar, allowing it to demonstrate the type's formidable maritime surveillance capabilities. Could this indicate that the RAF might be considering acquiring some of its protectors in this kind of maritime radar-equipped configuration? This was one of the questions we asked the Chief of the Air Staff. Sir, as a former OC of 12 Squadron, it must give you a particular thrill to think that the Royal Air Force that you now command now leads the field in such a vital and innovative capability area. But just how significant do you think that Protector's entry into service will be for your service and for the role that you carried out for all those years?
Yeah, thank you for that question, and I completely agree. And I think the leap in technology, the enormous leap in technology and performance that we will see with Protector, the SkyGuardian, when it comes into service, is something that I'm absolutely delighted to be leading the Air Force, and another great sort of technological step forward.
Brilliant. Now, Martin will confirm that people like me, specialist aviation journalists, always tend to harp on about force structure and to want to bang on about every cut, every reduction, every capability gap, every premature retirement of a beloved aircraft type. So it must give you really great pleasure to be telling people like me about an actual expansion in capability. Now, can you outline what the replacement of Reaper by Protector will mean? What does Protector bring additionally to the table for you?
So Protector is a much more capable platform, both in terms of its aerodynamic performance, so how long it can fly, how far it can go, but also in the range of different payloads, the different missions it can fly. So starting with the first element, it can fly for 40 hours, or with a sort of full payload, it can, you could say that it can operate at over 1,000 miles away for nearly 20 hours. So it's significant. We're talking in days rather than hours. And then the range of payloads, from environmental monitoring all the way through to carrying weapons, to conduct precision strikes. That full utility. So this is an aircraft that we can operate on large parts of the world, that gives us enormous choice and gives our decision makers choice as to how the UK will operate and act on a world stage.
Brilliant. How would you allay people's fears, especially those of the GA community, and guys like you were a little more recently than me, young UAS pilots bimbling around the sky, about this aeroplane, this massive unmanned platform weighing in at 12,500 pounds, nearly 80 feet of wingspan in unsegregated airspace. Now, many might say that is a Cessna Caravan and a half. It's bigger than an old de Havilland Heron, and it's going to be flying around the airspace in a lot of people's perceptions with a pilot with a blindfold on. How do you allay those fears?
So I can give anybody the assurance that is the effort that we're putting a huge amount of effort into. Right from the start, this program was built with the intention of this aircraft operating in any airspace. And some of its predecessors, of course, we can only operate in operational and sort of war zones. Whereas this one has been built to the same standards, to the same levels of airworthiness, with the sensors that you would put into an aircraft that carried humans. So right from the start, that standard, the UK Civil Aviation Authority standards and international standards have been applied to, and that's what gives this aeroplane so much utility compared to some of its predecessors.
Now, I'd be remiss looking at this aeroplane with the radar underneath it if I didn't ask you whether you could see a UK requirement for a SkyGuardian spec aeroplane, you know, particularly in view of the fact that this is going from here to, I nearly said Kinloss, Lossiemouth next. So, you know, do you see half of the batch coming in this kind of configuration, or an additional batch down the pipe?
So there's no decision's been made yet, but it's definitely one of the things we're exploring. This aircraft has undoubted utility to sit in the North Atlantic, to force multiply our Poseidon force, to work with the Poseidon force, the duration, the range of different payloads that it can carry. There's no doubt in my mind that it has utility in what we would describe as a maritime environment, so in a maritime patrol role.
Great. Thank you very much indeed,
right.
sir.
Thank you.
Steal back our...
Yeah, good.
Thanks very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks very much for watching. Stay safe out there, and do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way you'll get notification of the next video coming out.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and see you next time.